Welcome to Rodney Illustrations, Global Fusion, Dream Fuel. Thank you for joining us here. Today we have another special guest for a Q&A session. This individual is a very wise card diviner, a speaker of Dutch and English, a woman of mixed ancestry whose soul is 100% ALKEBULAN. We have with us none other than Phyllis Santucha, who has kindly allowed us to ask her some questions about her forthcoming ALKEBULAN Tarot deck. Hi Phyllis, and thank you for being here. Could you please give everyone a brief introduction to who you are?
Well, thank you for having me, Brother Wayne. I appreciate this very much. As for myself, I'm Phyllis. I'm the creator of the ALKEBULAN Tarot. I'm a mother of a 16-year-old and a creative spirit, I think. Also, I see myself really as a divination lover. Everything divination I truly enjoy. I see myself as a calm introvert. This is who I am. It's a little bit difficult, right, to pack that up in one answer, but I hope this answers it a little bit.
It answers it quite fine, actually. Thank you. Enchanté, Phyllis. So, you have this brand new project in the works, which is basically completed at this point in time and ready to launch, the ALKEBULAN Tarot deck. For those of us who don't know the history, could you please give us the backstory for how this project came about?
The project came about, in all honesty, I really wanted to create a deck in my own vision for myself. I love all decks. I don't think that there are many out there that a part of me would not want to have, you know, but we all need to make choices. But I really wanted a deck in the way I read. I'm not really reading in a Rider-Waite-Smith style in that sense. When I read in a numerology or elemental kind of way, sometimes you get a depiction and you really do place your own meaning behind it, but it's not really depicted in the cards. When, for example, a Three of Swords, you know, is three swords stabbing a heart, then yes, of course, I will place my own meaning behind it. But it takes a little bit away of the intuitive reading. So I really wanted a deck, you know, that was going to work for my way of reading. And I think, yeah, some decks really come close and some might absolutely be almost perfect. But I think, yeah, it's far between because I think everybody has a very different reading style, of course. So yeah, which deck is going to be perfect for you? So this is how that came about. I created one for myself. And in my joy when it was done and it came in the mail, I shared some photos on a Facebook page, which other tarot lovers, I knew they would appreciate my joy. They would share it, and they really did, and they really stepped it up in the sense of, oh, when can we get this deck? Could we get this deck? So in that sense, I started to dream a little bit bigger, you know, like, well, is this a possibility? Is this something I can do? I basically had the deck because, of course, you're going to go in the sense of thinking about, oh, people want it. I did, of course, make some adjustments. And this was more, yeah, a beautification of certain cards. It was really, it all began, I wanted a deck for myself. That is really where this all started.
Well, that's as good as a reason as I think you need, if not the best. Now let's look into the creative process. There are many names for the continent of Africa that predate the name that we know it as today. Some of the original ones were Ethiopia, Kush, and many others, but ALKEBULAN is said to be the most ancient name that we know of. Why did you choose that particular one for your deck?
Well, I chose the name for the ALKEBULAN Tarot to be ALKEBULAN because we as Africans actually gave our continent this name. This was not a name given by Europeans or Americans or any kind of colonizers in that sense. This was the mother tongue, so to speak. Because when we talk about Ethiopia or Kush, of course, these are definitely ancient names, but even Kush, it was more of a region, like Punt or anyway, there were others. I'm sorry, my brain. And with Ethiopia, the same. If you look for historical books, like for example, a Bible, when Ethiopia is mentioned, they do mean, Mother Africa or ALKEBULAN. But I think it would be a little bit misleading nowadays to call it Ethiopia, because we now see Ethiopia as it is today, which is a country in Africa. And I've always been fascinated about, because I don't think we have any historical data, at least not as far as I know. If anybody out there has it, please send me, how we came about that name to begin with. But it is our choice, it was not put upon us in that sense. The Africans gave Africa the name ALKEBULAN. But again, it was our continent. We gave it that name. It's the most ancient name out there for Africa again. And I really wanted to honor that, because even though the deck has definitely modern elements, we can also see some really tribal kind of aspects, from Africa, from ancient Africa. But even nowadays, where cultures really stayed the same throughout, this modernization today. So again, this was very, very important to me. I really thought about names, what else can I call it? And ALKEBULAN actually came up pretty soon, and I think I was sold by that time when this popped in my hand. It was like, that should be it.
And it was a great choice. A lot of us in the diaspora, self included, were unaware of this. There's just so much to uncover in recovering the history and legacy of what's been deliberately obscured by some. Before we go further, I just have to tell you thank you for generously sending me the ALKEBULAN guidebook to acquaint myself with. In it, you mentioned that the structure of your deck is mostly Rider-Waite-Smith for the major arcana and an influence of Thoth for the minor arcana. Now, I understand that for some people, Thoth, Thelema, and Crowley are a bit controversial, even in the metaphysical space. What are your thoughts where that is concerned?
Well, of course, you're very welcome for me sending at least the guidebook, it had all the pictures in there. I thought it would be nice to really see the deck in its whole format in that sense. So yes, it definitely has more Rider-Waite depictions, in the sense of, I think you can really see that coming back. At the same time, you can read it in the way it was meant to be read, like I said, because initially I made it for myself, which was in a numerology and elemental kind of way. I think with the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords, that became a little bit more, challenging. Because again, like I mentioned, the Three of Swords, three swords stabbing a heart. And a little bit the same in the sense of, the Ten of Swords is, of course, very, very different in that sense. So I did create 2 extra cards for these to, give it that Rider-Waite element then, in that sense. But the Thoth definitely influenced me. I think when I really started out and I looked at, for example, the court cards, in Rider-Waite and then versus Thoth, Thoth made a little bit more sense because, again, it was elemental, right? It is earth in fire, or in that sense, fire in earth, and so forth. The controversy surrounding Crowley, what can you say? I can separate a deck from its creator. However, you always see an element of the creator coming back. I don't know. I mean, there have been nasty stories told, throughout time about people. Was he really that bad? Again, I don't know. However, when we talk about a creator coming back, or having an influence on a deck, when you look at the intelligence of the Thoth Tarot, you cannot really argue. And I think it's as simple as that. yeah, you cannot like the man, but the thing that he created, is, in my opinion, a beauty, a work of art, where we can all agree that there are a lot of copies of Rider-Waite-Smith out there, and I don't mean that even in a bad way, but Rider-Waite-Smith definitely influenced, a lot of the creators. At the same time, yeah, there is this almost disgust with Crowley. The problem is, for example, the creator that created train or the car or whatever, do we not use these utilities in that sense just because the creator was, well, maybe a little bit crazy or even not a good person? Again, the Thoth Tarot is a tool, yeah? And yeah, I'm going to state it very plain and simply in that sense. You cannot argue with the intelligence of the Thoth Tarot deck. There is a lot of depth there. There is a lot of layers in the deck itself. And maybe he was a little bit crazy, At the end of the day, I think there was intelligence too. And I say that, again, looking at the deck. What that has brought to many people. And yeah, again, I can separate a creator from its deck in the sense of, yes, the elements will come back. At the same time, that deck is mine now. The way I use it will matter in that sense. So yeah, that's, I think, all that I can say about that.
Uh-huh. Thank you. That's a good point about being able to recognize the value of the creation as something distinct from its creator. It's really something to think about because much of the things that we use in modern society, including our systems and power structures, etc., also have a dubious history. And that's a unique conversation in and of itself. But let's get back to your story. It must have been quite an experience growing up within a family of people who practice divination. Your experience perhaps might seem normal to you, but for many of our listeners and viewers, I'd imagine that they probably came into their paths in a solitary way as a road to self-discovery. Could you please share with us a little bit of what your experience was like?
Well, the experience, it just was. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but we never really talked about terms like divination or divining, the cards were a tool. They could help us understand or make decisions, based on some inner knowledge almost. So yeah, it just was, and even though that was really playing cards and less again, tarot, that was the tool that was used, I remember my aunts in my, I think it was my begin 20s, I think it was also. No. I think I was a little bit younger, maybe 16, 17. I think she started before I actually looked at tarot, but she started using the Lenormand cards. And yeah, I've never been really pulled, to that system. I think it was still very close to playing cards, maybe. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel about it, But she loved that system. I mean, for her, really doing a big spread, and really putting down the 36 card, I think it is, right? But doing that big spread, that really gave her insight, and that was her preferred system. And I think it was in that time that I started to look also for different ways. And yeah, I ended up with tarot, where again she ended up with Lenormand, So yeah, tarot and later on even oracle with it in that combination. I'm sorry, my cat is crazy. So yeah, the experience, it's a little bit weird, looking back, because again, it just was. I don't think we really gave it that name. A little bit the same in other aspects, There were always herbal and family recipes for illnesses and stuff like that. That was never given a specific name, because there was even a very big element of Christianity when I grew up, which again I later was like no. But it was almost like, yeah, through the family line, right? One generation onto the next generation, without really giving it a name. It just was. So yeah, that's a little bit it.
It just was. That's beautiful. Perhaps that's the way it should be also. I don't know. I think that we've been conditioned to label things, which has its merits, but maybe there's something special in just having experiences. Now let's talk a little bit about our comparative experiences. For me, it's interesting how your process of creating the ALKEBULAN deck came to be. It's almost the reverse of my experience, because I think you grew up using the cards and divining and having that family connection with people who also use the cards and just having their experience to tap into. So for you, you were already familiar with the symbolism, and by the time the deck's conception came into being, you were most likely well versed in all of the interpretations, etc. I would think that this would make you extremely qualified, but you said that you felt like an outsider because you don't consider yourself an artist. Well, whenever people say that kind of thing, I just shrug because I disagree on principle. You are an artist. We all are. And your collage method is you utilizing your transmutive powers, literally taking something that already exists in one form and making it something else. But has your perspective on this changed since expressing those initial sentiments?
Maybe not per se an outsider, yeah. It was more, I already don't read like most people read. Because I know that there are a lot of out there who will read on an elemental and still, or a numerology kind of way, you know. But I really read in a story form. I'm not really using spreads because for me that is too pinpointed. Is that the right word? So I really read that in a story, and I can pull 3 cards and start at the end, then go to the first and end up in the middle, you know. So yeah, I don't know how many are out there, but I always felt like, especially when you see nowadays a tarot tube where people are teaching, you know, you're really like, do I do it wrong? And of course there's no right way or wrong way. I just know that I do see a difference in how I read, and so not per se an outsider. So as an artist, let me call myself an artist. I do. I'm not gonna lie. I think I do have some moments, you know, that my self-confidence in that case is like, yeah, but I'm not an artist like this or this, or I'm not an artist like this person, or I'm not an artist like that person, or even like you. I mean, you paint, you draw, and of course there is art form in many types. But when I look at your deck, you know, hand drawn or painted, or I look like a Margaret Peterson, right? That abstract art. It's not like I feel less, but because I can put myself highly enough, you know, to feel like, because when, for example, when my deck came in, I love my deck. I was squealing here in the house, yeah, like a 6-year-old, yeah, on Christmas Day. So I was really happy about it. The moment people said like, oh, do you want to sell it? I was like, oh, but can I? Am I qualified? Not because I cannot read tarot. I can. I can do it quite well if I say so myself. But again, I think because I never put art out there like this, at least my own art in that sense. It's just a step to take, you know. It's changing my own mindset to, well, you know what, you are, and I'm getting there. I'm not quite there, but I'm getting there. And in all honesty, all these people that keep telling me, oh, I'm going to support you, oh, your deck is awesome, they really help me. Because I have moments like, oh my God, what am I doing? Can I do this, you know? And then somebody will make a comment like, oh, this is so great, what a beautiful deck, and so forth. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I'm getting there. I'm not gonna say that I'm quite there yet, in all honesty, but yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting to see myself Well, I already think I saw myself as an artist, but I think I'm getting to the point of where I can say it out loud. I'm an artist. So, yes, again, we're getting there, we're getting there.
Yes, you are. Congratulate yourself for acknowledging it. Now, the visual arts, from my experience, always tends to have this symbiotic relationship with music. As they say, when the music hits, you feel no pain. So I've been looking at your post, right? And I can clearly see that reggae music has influenced you big time and is a big part of your life. Bob Marley, Peter Tosh come up all the time in your posts. Can you tell us how this came to be? As a Jamaican myself, I'm fascinated by how far-reaching these messages are.
Yes, when I was around my 17, 18, I started to listen to Bob Marley, and by listen, I mean really listen. I mean to his lyrics, not just a groovy beat, you know, and stuff like that, but really listen to the message. And I'm a mixed race. I grew up in a very white village, you know, and I was a kid with bigger lips and curly hair, and I was even more colored there. I started to get white. I don't know what happened. But that was, I was not treated badly, don't get me wrong, but I was looked upon differently, you know. For example, yeah, how do you say that? When and especially when I grew up, I was always not white enough to hang with the white crowd, but I was also not black enough to hang with the black crowd. And it made me a little bit, well, of a rebel, you know? So when I came across, again, you know, Bob Marley, and I really started to listen to his lyrics, he taught me many things, you know, about, well, the world we live in today. Because when we look nowadays at the news, this is not the news. You know, we need to look further, we need to look deeper. And of course, I think, you know, yeah, we didn't come from a time where we had social media, yeah, that this would be all over social media, and we would know what was happening across the world or around the world. So yeah, listening, yeah, to his lyrics like war, then finding out he got that from a speech of Haile Selassie, or listening to a song of him, yeah, where he talks about emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our mind, knowing that that came from a speech of Marcus Garvey, and that became that like this well, this thing that led me right my path. Like, oh, okay, who is Marcus Garvey? Again, I was in begin, you know, 17, 18, maybe 19 or 20. I was fairly young, and I was really looking to, like, what is my path? And Peter Tosh, the same, you know, where Bob was still a little bit, well, milder. I mean, he did come more to life, so to speak, after Survivor, right? That album, where he really produced it himself and really could talk about what he wanted to talk about. But where he was seen, I think, as a little bit more mild, Peter Tosh was a rebel, right? I mean, come on. This was a militant kind of personality. And I saw that in myself. I saw that I have a side that's definitely mild and mellow, and I can compromise, you know. And then I got a Peter side in a sense of, oh, no. This is it, and this is how it's supposed to be, and there's no compromising, you know. And I think the same with Bonnie, that spirituality that this man had, you know, that deep spirituality. I think when you listen to his solo albums, yeah, you will definitely hear that. This man can move me to tears, you know. Songs like Bear the Cross, right? I mean, oh my God. They really do something to me. And yeah, that influence has always been there since I really discovered this music, you know. And that never changed no more. Of course, we don't get new songs, but yeah, that never really changed anymore. It's really that spirit, you know, that soul music, right? What reggae is. and I don't mean soul music, I mean soul music, like it touches your being. So yes, they definitely influenced me, and they will keep doing so. That no question.
Are there any other genres of music that play a role in your creative process or in your day-to-day?
No, no. Reggae music, like I said, it's soul music to me, and I don't mean like Motown, which is cool, but again, reggae is music for the people. Bob used to say, right? It's people music. And again, it touches my soul, it touches my spirit. The fact that it talks about Pan-Africanism and Africa, you know, and Marcus Garvey and important people, you know, to listen to learn from. So, well, yeah, we already talked a little bit about that. But yeah, in sense of other music, I have genres I like, you know. I love an Afrobeat. But if they really play a role in well, my creative process, I think less, in all honesty. I think less.
In the major arcana of the ALKEBULAN, you have the traditional 22 cards of the major arcana with the intriguing addition of a mysterious ancestors card, which technically I guess could be a 23, I don't know, but you left this card unnumbered, stating that the card can be used in any manner in which the reader desires or is compelled to. That's fascinating. Why did you feel the need to include this card?
Yeah, the ancestor card, the deck itself was already, of course, a tribute to, you know, my own ancestors. I said I made it because I wanted a deck that would really read in the way I like to read. However, while making it, you know, the pictures I chose, the backgrounds I chose, you know, everything was centered around Africa. So it was already, you know, a tribute to my ancestors, and in all honesty, my brothers and sisters around the world. So the ancestor card, you say it's card 23, and you're right if you count the full as when you count the cards, you know, like full one and then and so forth. However, in numerology, it's actually card 22. And the number 22 for me personally has a straight line to my grandmother, who is now also an ancestor. So that is my personal connection. But of course, everybody can or anybody can use it the way they want. I mean, how do we look at our ancestors, right? Would you like to shuffle your deck, and when that card pops out, instead of doing your normal maybe daily pull, it's maybe a message that it's time for ancestor reading because they have something to tell you. But I also know that a lot of people don't really like, you know, extra cards in decks. Most are being taken out, and that's fine too. You can place it as an altar card, you know. It doesn't need to be a card that you, well, put somewhere away and never look at it again. But again, this is why I also didn't number the cards itself, because, well, we have the justice strength, right? 8 versus 11. I like justice at 8 and my strength at 11. Others don't like that. They like their strength at 8 and justice at 11. So to keep that open, even though in the book I did place justice, you know, after the chariot. However, again, you can use it however you want. Just because the book does it, you should have a problem, you know, shuffling it and reading it as, well, any number you please. So yeah, a little bit the same for the ancestor card, right? I mean, for any African spirituality, the ancestors are very important, you know. We honor them, yeah, we venerate them. So I really wanted that card in there because I do for myself regularly an ancestor reading. But you know, sometimes we don't know. I could have a good day and shuffle my cards and maybe get that card, and I can be like, oh, okay. Maybe it's time to, well, have a talk with them, you know, and get something from those voices. So again, that was really important. I mean, ALKEBULAN, Africa, again, African spirituality, we're all about the ancestors, you know. So I did feel like that should be a part of it in that sense, you know. So I did, and I hope people like it.
Now in the minor arcana, you've introduced 4 uniquely Afrocentric themed suits, specifically with how they're depicted. The staffs, for example, aren't the quarterstaffs from medieval times or ceremonial wands from Western magic. The staves you've chosen are African ALKEBULAN wands. Likewise for the axe, which calls to mind Shango, then the cowrie shells and the drums. I love all of your choices, and I'm very happy that you chose the drum. On a real note, but please tell us why you opted to use these particular items and what their significance is for you.
So yes, the standard, normal, I don't know, Pentacles Cups has changed, of course. I did try to stay closer to the symbology of what we know, because I think, the moment, all of us, if we need to think a little bit more, we tend to grab for something that we already know, right? I'm no different. But again, I did want to stay in that symbolism. And at the same time, I was already in the process of making this a melanated African deck. So yeah, coins and stuff like that. I mean, it could work, in all honesty. I could have chosen African coins and stuff like that. I did want to take from, a lot of different regions already. Like, it's not about only, for example, Yoruba people or Kemet people, or, it's really a united Africa. So it really was about African tools in that sense. I never really thought about long staff or short staff. I wanted a beautiful representation of an African staff. And you are right, the axe, you said it reminded you of Shango. And of course, I looked at a lot of different axes, but this one kind of got me to notice it in that sense. So I was like, well, Shango it is, right? And cowrie shells, I could have used coins, but cowrie shells in Old Africa were the currency, right? So when you talk about pentacles or coins, it's most of the time seen as the material, earth suit, right? So instead of, more modern coins, I like the cowrie shells, because even nowadays we use them in divination. And then, you mentioned the drums. Excuse me. For the cups, I was really thinking, because yes, I could have used, of course, some beautiful African vases, for example, or all the older cups in that sense. But the cups suit is water. It's all about feelings, right? And what is a thing that brings feelings out, even if you're not sure what these feelings are, or even if these feelings are buried deep inside? Music. When we talk about the music, you know what Marley once said: when it hits you, you feel no pain. So in a sense, I think of music, there's definitely something about it that brings up emotions. It gets you in your own feelings. And then when I really look, overall at African music, the drum is always there in the foreground. You say you're from Jamaica, even the Rastafarians, it's always on the drum, excuse me, it's that bass, right? It's that bass line, not bass like music, but bass line in the sense of the drum is always there. And of course, you have a lot of different African drums, right? But this is, how that came about a little bit, music. This is what brings out the feelings. Okay, what kind of instrument do we talk about then? And in all honesty, I didn't even think about this very long. Directly the drum popped up, cups should be drums. So that's a little bit how that came about.
Splendid. How can people find the ALKEBULAN deck?
People can find the ALKEBULAN Tarot. Well, not yet, but you could follow me, of course, on Instagram to keep updated. It's at Phyllis.Santucha. I hope, this is not a promise, but I hope I can get the deck in the second part of this year, on Kickstarter. But I'm sending out some decks for review, to get some feedback also. There are a few months in between that. It will also not be too long because the deck is done, it's done and okay. No changes there. The guidebook itself, well, I already sent it to you, is, let me say, 98% done, I mean, the bigger layout, the text, all of that is done. There are some things I want to add, later on, and still, like I said, I get some feedback. Maybe I need to add something or change something. So that might happen in that sense. But the overall big picture is done, So yeah, now, like I said, I'm waiting a little bit on feedback and reviews, to get that honest perspective on it. So for now, like I said, please follow me on Instagram. I will keep people there updated when new things happen or when news comes about,
Excellent. So do you have any other projects or services in the works?
I do have some new projects in my mind. Before I really decided to do this Kickstarter, I actually started working on an Oracle deck. But then, people were asking like, oh, you want to make this public? So I put that a little bit aside and really started to focus. Because, well, I needed to teach myself, okay, how does Kickstarter work? How does BackerKit work? How will this work, But some cards are already done, and probably once this is out, and I have fulfilled this, then I can really start to focus on a new project. But yeah, there's definitely new projects well, at least already in the make in my head. So yeah, they will definitely come about. And again, in the sense of contacting me, I will give you my email address so you can put it in the description. I already will say it, ALKEBULAN@outlook.com. And of course, through Instagram, at Phyllis.Santucha, These are solid ways to definitely get in touch with me if need be. And again, till that time, I'm definitely going to keep you all updated, at least through Instagram. So keep following that, and then you're not going to miss out on anything.
Thank you so much, Sister Phyllis, for doing this interview, and thank you to everyone who's participated. Please feel free to drop a comment and share your thoughts. And also, links to everything are included in the description of this video. I'm Wayne from Rodney Illustrations, creator of the Global Fusion Intuitive Tarot, published by US Games Systems. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for having me, Wayne. Really, really thank you. I mean, all the promotion, or at least putting it out there that this deck is coming, is of course very helpful for me. So I want to thank you and everybody watching, for even considering, this deck.